How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome to the post-game show on Fireside Yankees with myself, Alex, and Ryan Garcia, my co-host. Another win, another day, another win. It's whatever you want to call it. This team cannot stop winning games. And, of course, they had a couple of tough outings against Houston, Tampa Bay, but still managed to split the series over there against Houston. They have one game. We're going to Houston tomorrow, one game before we take on Cleveland. We got Boston coming up. We got a couple of away games and then a day off on July 4th to kind of break it all up. This is the first day off the Yankees are going to have in 20 games straight. So you can kind of tell the fatigue is setting in. Some of these guys, Jameson Taillon specifically, have been struggling, right? The starting pitching has been struggling a little bit, aside from Garrett Cole, who continues to dominate. But Taillon, 17 hits allowed and 9 runs in his last 2 games combined. Today was no better, right? He had a pretty tough outing today. He did last 5 innings. But he did give up, 7 hits and 3 earned runs, struck out 6 batters through 101 pitches. So as you said I think maybe 2 days ago, yes, the starting pitching are getting beat up, but they're still going deep into the game. It's not like they're getting knocked out in the second or third inning. They're at least picking things up and not letting, teams bury them early. They're showing some resiliency, and that's, those starts, the stats don't tell the full story at times, Ryan. But what is your impression of Jameson Taillon coming off this game and kind of his performances lately just kind of not being where you'd expect them to be?
So I think for Town, it's about location, right? He's not a guy with overpowering stuff. Now, his fastball does get a lot of swings and misses, but again, this is not a guy with Garrett Cole type stuff or even Luis Severino type stuff. This is a guy who relies on his command. We saw this with Monty where, it's not the home run that was killing. It's, the A's didn't hit a bunch of home runs off of him. The Houston Astros hit 2 home runs off of him. What happened with the A's was he was giving up hit after hit after hit after hit after hit in that first inning. We saw with Monty where he really just had that one inning where they just could not get that third out. They could not get that swing and a miss, and that hurts them. Ultimately, these are guys who rely on finesse, on command, for them to get out of big time jams, for them to get through an outing, and where they're not completely 100% sharp, things like this can happen. Thankfully, as you alluded to just now, the Yankees have figured out with their starters, they figured out how to keep themselves in games and not take the Yankees out of a baseball game. The Yankees were down 5-1 and 3-0 at different points very early on in games in this series against Oakland, and they walk away with a sweep. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, in October, it's not sustainable to do it. Well, in October, I really don't imagine that the Yankees are going to put themselves in a situation to be down 5-1 consistently against good teams. And the fact that they can come back is something that tells you a lot about this team. This is a good thing that the team knows how to do this, and that those starting pitchers can go through the order multiple times without letting the game unravel, letting things get worse. We see in the bullpen too, Miguel Castro lately has been a lot better. This is a guy who had a horrible outing against the Blue Jays, like nightmare outing, right? You think of the calls right down the middle that he wasn't getting, that leads into Gurriel Jr. hitting an absolute moonshot, and the Yankees end up losing and blowing a game they absolutely should have won. You look at Lucas Lipke, who has had his fair share of meltdown outings where you're like, why is he even in the game? Why is he even on the roster? He gives you 2 strong innings. Clay Holmes is just Clay Holmes. I'm not going to sit here and explain to you why Clay Holmes is a phenomenal pitcher, but, he is a sub-1 ERA guy in his career at the Yankees. That is, I get him. I'm more impressed every single day I see him pitch. It's just like, he's remarkable. But you look at the bullpen, right? The Yankees don't have to use Clay Holmes or Wandy Peralta to win a baseball game, or Michael King to win a baseball game and shut a team down. We saw this against Houston where they didn't use Holmes or King in that first game. They made a comeback on. The bullpen just kept them in the game somehow. Just low-key, Taillon, Abreu, all these other guys stepping in. The Yankees just have that level of bullpen depth. You look at the guys actively on the roster right now. The highest ERA on that is Miguel Castro. Not Miguel Castro. No, it is Miguel Castro at this point with a 3.51. Everyone else, Schmidt, Loaizaga, Chapman are either on the IL or in AAA. And Abreu doesn't have an earned run given up for the Yankees. So the Yankees bullpen, ERA-wise, they've prevented runs as good as anyone it could. Their rotation, again, they've struggled ERA-wise lately, but I'm not ultimately too concerned. The Yankees are linked to Luis Castillo. I've talked about this 1,000 times ever since that report has come out because I think he's a great fit. But this is a team that's just resilient, man.
Yeah, I mean, resilient has been the word we've been using for the last couple of days now. But, without Giancarlo Stanton, without Aaron Judge, man, where does this team even go? Like, they have been so impactful, specifically Judge. First inning, launches a 2-run homer, drives in DJ LeMahieu. How many leadoff homers has this guy Aaron Judge had? Or rather, just first inning homers? He must have like 10 first inning homers this year. Maybe not 10, maybe 5, 6 first inning homers. The guy starts the game so strong. When you can get off to a good start, when you can put a couple runs on the board, even 1 run on the board early in a game, that is so demoralizing for a starting pitcher. And Cole Irvin, for the Athletics, went 7 innings, gave up 6 hits and 5 earned runs. The Yankees only had 6 hits in the game, but they still managed to make the most of them with those 2 homers from Judge and Stan. Judge's homer was 429 feet. He absolutely freaking destroyed that baseball. Hit it to the bleacher creatures. They were swarming back there, a bunch of aliens. It was crazy. I mean, he really launched that thing. Like, I saw him hit it, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, that's going, and it just kept going, man. Stanton obviously had the opposite field homer. Has done a really good job. Like, Stanton's biggest weakness, in my opinion, over the last couple of years, has been sometimes he leans back when he's swinging. He tries to pull it, but now those outside pitches, he has so much power in his hands and his bat and his lower body. I mean, he doesn't even really use his lower body. It's like all upper body power. He has so much power that, like, when he just reaches across the plate to slap those outside, those slightly outside the zone or just even on the outside portion of the strike zone, he leans out and hits them, and they fly over the fence every time. The guy has just more power than I've ever seen. I mean, of course, you guys look like Barry Bonds, obviously, like even A-Rod, Judge, obviously, but like, you see a guy that can reach across the plate off balance and hits and slap oppo field homers like that easy. You don't see that very often. And he does it pretty frequently, so it's pretty impressive. But now going up, and we have 1 game against Houston, really interesting little game there. What is your impression, going forward? Who's starting tomorrow? Do you know who's starting tomorrow?
I believe it's Luis Severino for the Yankees. I can check who's starting for Houston right now.
It's going to be Garcia and
Garcia. Yeah. For the Yankees, it's a 6:10 start for us, which is kind of weird because it's at weird. Texas. You'd imagine it's like 8:10, but hey, you know what? I'll take an earlier start, get the game started and finished earlier. I guess it's also because the Yankees have to leave to Cleveland right after, so I guess that would make sense for an earlier start. The game plan is simple for Luis Severino, right? You're gonna need to rely on your off speed. Like, the game plan, whatever game plan he had against Houston the first time was working until he threw an inside fastball to Kyle Tucker. But outside of that, it was a strong game plan. It was working. Like, don't deviate from it too much. Obviously, seeing it seam twice in your, that's gonna suck, right? Like, I think it's gonna be really hard for Severino to try to execute because they just saw him 5 days ago. And we saw this with Carlos Carrasco. He got destroyed the first time and then demolished the second time. Now, granted, Luis Severino has far better stuff than Carlos Carrasco does, but Severino has to make sure that he doesn't get predictable against Houston. And the Yankees have to make sure to take advantage of, that short left field they have. You have a lot of power-heavy righties, right? You think of that Josh Donaldson fly ball he just missed for a home run. That probably goes in Houston. For Severino, you kind of now can pitch inside to guys, especially lefties, without getting worried about the short porch. Whereas in New York, you can't really do that. And that kind of takes away an avenue to pitch to guys like Kyle Tucker and them, because their right field isn't short. It isn't like deep per se, but it isn't as short as Yankee Stadium. Like, we know Yankee Stadium's, it's an iconic aspect of the stadium. This one game I think is going to have added importance for some people, but I just see it as another game. I want to reiterate, like, yes, there's my deep down, I don't like the Astros, and I hope we beat them because they're the best team in the American League that isn't the Yankees. But it's another game to me. How good you think the Yankees are depends on a game on June 30th, when they're 56-20 and could potentially drop to 56-21, then you need to reevaluate how you look at teams. If they win tomorrow, that'll be great. But am I going to sit here and tell you, they won tomorrow? That's it. Don't even have to worry about the Astros in Houston. No, you'd be silly to say it. The only season series that matters against the Astros is the one that you have against them in October if you play them. Okay, you win. Your priority is to win games always, but tomorrow isn't a playoff game. Tomorrow isn't a divisional game. Tomorrow is just another game, and I hope the Yankees go out and just win because I want them to win. But I'm not gonna throw a fit if they go out and lose or over exaggerate and pretend like the Yankees aren't as good because they lost that game.
Well, the thing is, when your team is winning as much as the Yankees are, any loss feels like a World Series loss, right? It's just like we're so accustomed to winning. It's like, drinking the same water and then suddenly somebody gives you a Mountain Dew and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, it just doesn't make any sense for us, like psychologically. But I'll tell you what, to smooth it over, even if the Yankees do lose, I mean, right now they have an 8-game lead in Major League Baseball over the Astros. So they're 8 games above the Astros. They haven't even hit double-digit losses at home yet. They're the only team in baseball that hasn't lost double-digit games at home. They have 34 wins, 9 losses. So that's pretty incredible. Houston has lost 11 games at home, so a couple more than the Yanks. They've played a lot more away games this season than home, which is interesting. I guess the second half of the year will be a little bit more favorable for them. In terms of our division, we're 13 games above the Toronto Blue Jays at 76 games into the season. That is insane. 13 games above the second place team in the AL East. And mind you, 3 of those teams are above 500, and we're 13 games above the second place guy. That is like just stupendous how successful this team is performing this year. They have a plus 151 run differential. They've won 4 straight games. It's beautiful. This is gorgeous. They have the most wins. They're tied with the Red Sox. Actually, we're on a little bit like everyone's going crazy about how good the Red Sox are playing right now. But they have the same amount of wins in the last 10 games as the Yankees do, and you're like, this is just regular for us, bro. Like this is nothing special. Like this is what we expect. Red Sox fans are like, oh my god, we're winning games again. And I'm like, the Yankees, like we're just absolutely crushing everybody. Like, and even when we're losing, I still feel like we're not out of the game. Ryan's deactivating Twitter's out here trying to make sure that we win games. Everything we can do, whether it's superstition, it works, man. They know that like Garcia's off the platform, we're gonna start hitting. I don't know what it is, but keep doing what you're doing because I love it.
All I'm gonna say, man, is if I'm a guy like Alex Cora or I'm Dusty Baker and I check Twitter during a game and I see tweets are not loading for Ryan Garcia ESM, I'm taking out whatever garbage reliever I put in. I'm throwing in my top guys. I'll get Verlander warming up in the pen like this is a World Series game because you're gonna need it. But I think you made a great point where it's like, I can remember every single loss the Yankees have had this year. I can specifically remember. There have been so few that I can remember all of them. And I don't know if that's like, I can't. I think the crazy thing is I've said this on this channel where like, appreciate this. This is the best baseball the Yankees will play. They'll never play baseball like this again, even during the rest of the season. And that was when they had 35 wins. And now we have 56 wins. And it's like, when like this team is just a machine. Like I feel like every week we're saying the same thing. Like this team is just so impressive. What else is there to say? This team is so impressive. What else is there to say? I just saw a stat from Katie Sharp. The Yankees are 9-11 in the 20 games they've played in which they've trailed by 3 or more runs. The next best record is 6-20 by the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Yankees are around the 500 team when they go down by 3 or more runs in a baseball game.
You're like handicapping another team.
Yeah, that's a death sentence for any other team. And in October, even if the Yankees don't go on and win that particular game, if it's a Game 3 situation, the Yankees are up 2 on a series and they drop that game, you have made them use their bullpen. You have now get to see those guys multiple times. It's a proven statistical fact. This isn't just like a trope that people made up in like the 50s. Like, oh, if you see a certain pitcher enough times, they'll get easier to hit. That's a statistical fact. It's true. Pitchers get worse when that happens in a playoff series. And for the Yankees, if with the way they beat up on bullpens, man, if you can see a guy like Ryan Presley or a guy like JP Fireeisen, or I'm just thinking of other Jordan Romano, these top level relievers on these top level American League teams, if you see them a lot of times in the playoff series, you're going to get to them. And you may go, well, the Yankees rely on Clay Holmes, and how's that gonna? The Yankees don't have to close with Clay Holmes. We just talked about this. And we've talked about this constantly, where if Chapman or Loizaga or Britton get back, if just one of the 3, hell, 2 of the 3 can get back to even close to what they were, the Yankees have 3 closers, 3, and Wandy and King are alternative options. So the Yankees don't have to throw out the same guy every single day. The Yankees have such a massive statistical advantage in their bullpen over everyone else. Could you imagine if they get a starter and now you see 2 of Monty, Severino, Tyone, and Nestor, 2 of those guys go to the bullpen for a playoff series? You're down 3-0, 4-0 a game, and you have to pull, let's say, Montgomery in the 3rd inning, and now you throw out Jamison Tyone to give you the next 5 innings. Like, dude, this team can do so much to get so much better. And they're already 56-20. This team is blowing my, like, I can't comprehend how good this team is. We will never see a team play this well over 76 games in our lifetime. And if we do, it probably won't be the Yankees because this is a once in a lifetime thing. Appreciate this. Please don't go out. And the first thing you think of is, oh man, I wonder how this team's going to play against Houston. Oh man, we lost. I don't know if we can beat Houston. All this team's going to get exposed by Houston. You are 36 games over 500. Look at guys to trade for. Look at guys who are playing well on the team. Don't start asking yourself if you can beat a team that's 8 games worse than you in the win-loss column this year. Don't worry about, oh, can we beat them? Because that's a psychological thing. Yes, you can beat the Houston Astros. And no, the regular season doesn't determine what you can do in the postseason.
Yeah, I think you're right. Houston Astros, look, they're beatable. We're 8 games above them in the rankings, so it's pretty obvious that we can overcome them. We can beat them. It's all psychological. It feels different playing them, honestly, and I'm sure they feel the same way on the field. But guys, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. As always, post-game reports, daily content every single day. Take a look at details for pitchers. We did a really great episode today. Ryan spoke about Aroldis Chapman and how he can kind of change his sequence and really help himself when he comes back from injury. So a lot of good stuff coming. The trade deadline's coming up. We're going to have a lot of content flowing for that, making sure that we got you guys covered with all the news, rumors, and breakdowns of every single player that the Yankees are connected to. So we know exactly what they're getting and how they're going to be incorporated because, there's a lot of stuff going on. The Yankees are playing so well. It's just fun to talk about this team every single day. It's always like a positive. Every single day is a positive. We know the Yankees are going to win. When they lose, it's like, all right, we've won so many games. You can ride those for the rest of the week. But like I said, guys, have a phenomenal day. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.